It was a cold winter evening when my friend Jake and I decided to take a road trip to an old, abandoned asylum rumored to be haunted. The tales of the asylum were infamous in our town. Stories of tortured souls, strange sounds in the night, and shadows that moved on their own. We had heard it all, but curiosity and the thrill of adventure pushed us to explore this dark chapter of local history. As we drove through the winding roads, the sky turned a deep shade of indigo, and the trees loomed like twisted fingers reaching for the heavens. The air was thick with anticipation, and as we approached the asylum, its crumbling facade loomed over us like a giant specter. The building had once been a place of healing, but had long since fallen into disrepair, its windows shattered and walls covered in creeping vines. We parked the car and grabbed our flashlights, the beams cutting through the thickening darkness. As we stepped out, an eerie silence enveloped us. The only sound was the crunch of gravel beneath our feet as we made our way to the entrance. The heavy wooden doors creaked open with a push, revealing a dark hallway that seemed to stretch into infinity. Inside, the air was stale, filled with the scent of mold and decay. We shone our flashlights around, illuminating remnants of the past, rusted gurneys, peeling paint, and old medical equipment that hinted at the horrors once inflicted within these walls. The atmosphere was thick with dread, but we pressed on, driven by adrenaline and a sense of adventure. As we explored room after room, we stumbled upon what appeared to be a patient's quarters. The walls were covered in strange scribblings, frantic messages that sent chills down my spine. "They won't let me go," one read. "I can hear them at night," another warned. It was unsettling, but we laughed it off as mere remnants of a troubled mind. We ventured deeper into the asylum until we reached the basement, a place that felt alive with an energy we couldn't explain. The air grew colder, and an oppressive weight settled on our chests. We exchanged nervous glances, but decided to descend the narrow staircase anyway. Each step echoed ominously, amplifying our growing unease. At the bottom, we found ourselves in a large room filled with rusted cages and old medical instruments. In the corner stood a solitary chair, its leather cracked and worn. As we approached it, I felt an inexplicable urge to sit down. I brushed off Jake's warnings and plopped into the chair, but as soon as I did, a wave of nausea washed over me. I could almost hear whispers creeping into my mind, soft, pleading voices that seemed to come from nowhere. "Get out!" I suddenly shouted, standing up abruptly. Jake looked at me with concern. "What's wrong?" he asked. I shook my head, trying to shake off the feeling that something was terribly wrong. That's when we heard it, a low moan emanating from the shadows. We froze, our hearts pounding in unison as we turned our flashlights toward the sound. The beam danced across the walls until it landed on a figure standing at the far end of the room, a woman in a tattered hospital gown, her hair hanging in matted strands over her face. She stood completely still, her eyes hidden in darkness. "Help me," she whispered, her voice barely audible, yet filled with desperation. Jake and I exchanged horrified glances. This couldn't be real. We had come seeking thrills, not to encounter something so profoundly disturbing. The woman stepped forward, her movements jerky and unnatural. "They won't let me leave," she repeated, her voice rising in pitch. I felt an icy grip around my heart as I stumbled backward. "We need to go," I shouted, grabbing Jake's arm and pulling him toward the staircase. But as we turned to flee, the shadows around us thickened, swallowing our light and plunging us into darkness. Panic surged through me as I felt something brush against my leg, a cold hand grasping at my ankle. I screamed as I jerked away, falling to the ground. Jake pulled me up just as we heard the woman's voice again, this time louder and more frantic. "Don't leave me. You can't leave." We bolted up the stairs two at a time, adrenaline fueling our escape. The whispers grew louder behind us, echoing through the hallways like a chorus of lost souls begging for release. We burst through the front doors and into the night air, gasping for breath as we stumbled away from the asylum. But as we reached the car, I realized something was wrong. Jake wasn't beside me anymore. Panic set in as I turned back toward the asylum, only to see him standing at the entrance, his expression vacant and eyes wide with terror. "Jake, come on!" I yelled, but he didn't move. Instead, he raised his hand slowly as if trying to reach for something just beyond my sight. "Help her," he murmured, his voice distant and hollow. "No, we have to go," I screamed, terror clawing at my throat as I rushed back toward him. But before I could reach him, shadows enveloped Jake, swallowing him whole. "Jake!" I cried out in desperation as I lunged forward, but it was too late. He vanished into thin air as if he had never been there at all. A chilling silence descended around me as I stood alone in front of the asylum. The whispers returned, swirling around me like a tempest of sorrow and despair. "Help us," they pleaded. "You must help us." I stumbled back toward my car, heart racing and mind reeling from what had just happened. The weight of loss pressed down on me as I realized that Jake was gone, lost to whatever malevolent force resided within those walls. I drove away from that place as fast as I could, tears streaming down my face. The road blurred before me as I fought against despair and terror. I couldn't shake the feeling that something had followed me home, a lingering presence that whispered in my ear at night and haunted my dreams. Days turned into weeks, but Jake never returned. I reported his disappearance to the authorities, but they found no trace of him, no evidence he had ever been there at all. It felt like a nightmare from which I couldn't wake up. Haunted by guilt and fear, I couldn't escape the memories of that night, the woman's desperate plea for help echoing in my mind like a siren's call. I became obsessed with uncovering the truth about what had happened to Jake and those lost souls trapped within the asylum's walls. After extensive research, I discovered that the asylum had a dark history, patients subjected to cruel experiments and left to suffer in isolation. Many had died without ever receiving help or compassion. It became clear that their souls were bound to that place, eternally searching for someone to hear their cries. Driven by guilt and sorrow for my friend's fate, I returned to the asylum one last time, determined to confront whatever darkness lay within and find a way to free Jake's spirit. Armed with only a flashlight and my resolve, I stepped inside once more. The air was heavy with despair as I made my way back to the basement, the heart of darkness where it all began. The shadows loomed larger than before, whispering my name in haunting tones that sent shivers down my spine. "Jake!" I called out into the void. "I'm here. I'll find you." As I descended into the depths once more, a chilling wind swept through the room. The whispers grew louder until they became a cacophony of voices, some pleading for release while others screamed in agony. "Help us! Help us!" I reached the room with the cages again and saw her, the woman from before, standing in front of me once more. Her eyes were hollow pits of despair as she reached out toward me. "Help him," she begged. "He's trapped like us." With newfound determination, I stepped closer to her. "How? How can I help?" "The key is in their pain," she whispered urgently. "You must confront their suffering." Suddenly, visions flooded my mind. Images of torment and anguish played out before me. Patients screaming for mercy while being restrained. Shadows lurking in corners. Echoes of laughter twisted into something sinister. I closed my eyes against the onslaught of horror, but forced myself to remember Jake, the laughter we shared, his dreams for the future, and let that love guide me through the darkness. "I'm here for you," I shouted into the void. "I won't abandon you." The shadows recoiled momentarily before surging toward me like a tidal wave of despair. But instead of succumbing to fear, I stood firm against their advance. "I release you," I declared with all my might. "You are not forgotten. You deserve peace." The shadows writhed violently around me as if caught in a storm. Whispers transformed into anguished cries before suddenly falling silent. A blinding light erupted from within me, a warmth that enveloped everything around me. When it faded away, I found myself standing alone in an empty room. The shadows gone in silence surrounding me like a comforting embrace. But then I heard it, a soft voice calling my name from behind me. "Thank you." I turned around to see Jake standing there, his expression peaceful, yet filled with sorrow for what had transpired. "I thought I lost you," I said breathlessly as tears streamed down my face. "You saved me," he replied softly. "You gave them what they needed." In that moment of connection between us, a bond forged through love and sacrifice, I knew we had both been changed forever by our encounter with darkness. Together we left that place behind, two souls forever intertwined by shared experiences etched into memory, a reminder that even in our darkest moments, hope could shine through if only we dared to confront it head-on. As we stepped outside into the cool night air once more, hand in hand, I felt lighter than ever before, no longer burdened by guilt or fear, but instead filled with gratitude for every moment spent together, and every lesson learned along this harrowing journey through life's shadows.